Happy Labor Day. I have a present for you. And you may say, oh, well, I didn't bring you anything. Well, you did. You brought your attention, which is all I ask for. I have the update for my cash flow projection model for public pensions using the public plans database. Of course, they've had a data update, and that data update was in June. There's some more pension plans in there, and also I have some fiscal year 2021 data as a result. Not any fiscal year 2022, of course. Um, so let me demonstrate the tool. I'm going to use Calpers, so that's California PERF, as my demonstration plan for the base. And then I'm going to do a couple of stressed plans, a few other plans to demonstrate how this tool works. So in the yellow area, in the upper left up here, that's where you do your input. There is a drop down, so you see where the California PERF is. You can pull down and choose the plan you want. So we're just going to keep it on California PERF for right now. And then there's 4 percentages, which I'm going to keep at 0% for right now. We'll change it in a moment. And these are inputs that you can change. Contribution growth rate, so that's the money that's going into the plan. And it's based off of, you have your historical cash amounts that are going in, and then there's going to be a compound growth rate. Okay, so this is going to compound, and you can put in a negative number if you want. You can put a positive number if you want. So I'll demonstrate that in a moment. Benefit growth rate. So this is the cash going out to pension benefits. Non-benefit expense growth rate. In general, I recommend just leaving that at 0. I put that in there because non-benefit expenses are a cash flow item. So this is everything that's going out that's not the pension benefits. It tends to be a very small amount, and when we look at the graph, like, you can barely see it. And then the investment return. Now, the investment return is handled differently from these cash flows because this is going to be a percentage amount applied to the market value of the assets to generate a cash flow. And then everything that's in blue are going to be results. And then we have graphs. So let's look at our results. Because nothing is really going on here until we get something other than greater than 2040, I'm not going to talk about this part here. Let's look at our graphs. So first we have market value of assets. What's in the dark blue is the historical amount that comes straight from our database. So you'll see it goes up and down versus this light blue, which is our projected amount, which is going to be pretty smooth in its trajectory given how simple this model is. This is not a stochastic model. We're not projecting anything random here. Everything is deterministic. That makes things very simple. So you see historically, of course, there's a volatility to the market value of the assets. It goes up and down. So you see for fiscal year 2009, because the fiscal year for most public plans will end on June 30th, not matched up with the calendar year. So when the market dropped in the fall of 2008, you're going to see that showing up in the fiscal year 2009 reporting. So you'll see the asset value drop for fiscal year 2009 for most of the plans. Not all of them. Different plans have different fiscal years, and that does get a bit confusing. Anyway, it goes up. What we'll actually see in next year's update, when we have fiscal year 2022 data, you'll see a drop for many of these plans for the fiscal year 2022 reporting, since we've had some down equity markets results for many of these plans. Many of them will have seen a drop for 2022. Anyway, so you can see it kind of slowly erodes as the benefits go out. The contributions remain flat. Benefits are going out. So what's going on in the graph over here to the right? These are cash flows, actual and projected. What are these different cash flows that we see? Let me start with the easy one, which is this kind of olive stripey ones, and those are the net investment income cash flows. Because my investment return is 0%, that means there's basically no net investment income in the future. So everything that we see here is the historical. And you can see for fiscal year 2021, there was a huge return, as well we know. So it went up here, do. So for fiscal year 2021, there was a huge double digit, and most of them will have seen very, very good returns for 2021. And you'll see most of the years we've had some pretty good positive net investment income. So if it's on the positive side, so that was a positive net investment income year. And then for fiscal year 2009, which was our bad year, it's on the negative side. Okay, and you'll see that here, that's our worst historical return, and that was in 2009, that's negative 24%. What we see up here are plan statistics. These are historical results. On the left is our 10-year average, and this is as of fiscal year 2021 because that's the last year we have data for. And not all of the plans do we have it for fiscal year 2021. It differs plan by plan. Some of them, the most recent year we have data for is fiscal year 2020. Some it's fiscal year 2019, but that's fewer. Most of them it's going to be 2020 or 2021. So we'll have the 10-year statistics and the 5-year statistics. And it will actually, for the investment return for most of these plans, if it's fiscal year 2021, they'll actually look pretty good because fiscal year 2021 was such an up year, it will affect the 10-year and the 5-year statistics, just an FYI. But you'll also see we'll have a contribution growth rate. That's actually pretty high, and a benefit growth rate. And that's actually, notice that the benefit growth rate for California PERF, 6.7%. So that's pretty steady. So let's start putting in inputs. And I'm not going to change the rest of it. I'm going to put a benefit growth rate of 6.7% in. So what happens? Oh my goodness. My assets went away. So I don't have any investment return. So remember, no investment return. And I'm not having the contribution grow. And notice that's not matching what we're seeing historically. Okay, so let's start reading stuff off the graph and think about what we're seeing happening here. First, let's look at our market value of assets. And I want to start pointing out some things. First off, Calpers is the largest fund. This scale here is in millions of dollars. That means this 600,000 here, that is really $600 billion. This peak here is close to $500 billion in this fund. And we're having it go from 500 billion to $0 because the benefits are getting paid out and the contributions. So we look over here and it's hard to see because these are also in dollars in millions. So this is 50 billion, 100 million, and these are cash flow amounts. And it's hard to see. Let me see if I can hover over one of these. And this is 2020. And notice, this is going out. The black is the benefits getting paid. So let's see if it's going to let me see how much this is. Is it going to give me the amount? Okay, I'm going to actually flip to another tab so you can see this is the results, projection results tab. You can get into every single tab in the spreadsheet. Nothing is hidden. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this tab. The tab is called Calcs, and I will actually just step through the tabs very quickly so you can see what is on what page. The other tabs are not user-friendly, and they're not intended to be. They're not intended to be a mess either, but you will see some of these are lookups and some of these are calculations. So I look up. You'll see these are the different field names. Investment return 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, market assets net, contribute total, expense net, expense total benefits, return assumption, GASB, etc. And I'm looking up these amounts. So we want to see what the benefits are. Okay, we're going to go and you can see them gaining steam. And you can see up in row 4 is the year. So we'll go up to, oops, and now you can't even see the amount. So I'll make that a little bigger so you can see the amount. So we have $25.8 billion in benefits going out. And then, oops, it actually decreased. No, I'm sorry, it did increase. Whoa, it increased, went from 25.8 billion up to 27.4 billion dollars in benefits going out in 2021. What do you want to bet? Because of the pandemic, a lot of people retired. That will be a story for another time. So anyway, that's 2021. All the calculations are here. I did extend it to 2021. There are various items down here that the graphs are built off of, because then you start with the projections over here. There are some calculations over here for the tables and the graphs. Let me just step through the tabs. The next tab is a pivot table. This pivot table is based off of, oops, let me close the pivot table fields. And you can see the default is of an alphabetical list of all of the plans that are in this database. It has the ID that is from the public pension plans database, the state for each of these, and then FY is fiscal year. I just did it 2016 through 2021. The whole point and the reason I was looking at this is for the next tab, last year lookup, where I was figuring out what the last year for each of these was. You'll see there's one plan, and I'll show you what happens with that plan. Tennessee State and Teachers is missing the 2020 data. Um, that's a strange one. Pensions data, that tab is actually the data draw from the public pensions plan database. That is just the raw data dump that comes from publicplans.org, the downloadable data. You go, and this was as of September 4th, 2022. Names and field are my lookups. These are the tables that come straight. It has the field name, unsorted and sorted, that I use for lookup purposes. And then I have a notes page that you can see kind of a version history. So I used to have a version history 1, 2, 2.1, etc. And then now I'm going to dates because I'm not making a lot of feature changes. Okay, that's enough of looking at the guts of the spreadsheet. You are welcome to play with that, adapt the spreadsheet as you will. I use some licensing where you can do whatever the heck you want with this. I do prefer to have my work given some credit, but frankly, I don't care as long as you're not misleading other people. But the point here is you have this benefit growth rate of 6.7% that's compounding year over year. You start with about $28 billion in benefits in the year 2021, and it's growing about 7% per year. And so you can see in the year 2040, we have near $100 billion in benefits walking out the door. That really eats away at this $500 billion in assets if you're only contributing, about 25 billion a year. You're not covering the amount that's going out. And notice this black shaded amount. This is the amount. What happens when the assets run out? You go into a pay-as-you-go system. And that's what this part of the results are for. What is the year? This is the projected fund depletion date when the assets run out. The year is 2038. So you can see that. You could say 2037, 2038. So 2038 is when the assets run out. And then how much do you have to increase the contributions from 2037 to 2038 or 2039? So some of it is, how much did you have to increase it? This one isn't a 273% increase. The 273 increases from 2037 to 2039. So I kind of looked at, is it the next year? Because in 2038, you're actually only covering part of what you had to. There was still some assets left over. So I waited until you're fully pay as you go. And then that's where I looked at the increase in the contribution base. And that was 2039. You know, you can adjust it how you want. It's a matter of choice. So let's start playing with this. We can do some investment return. Let's suppose we get 8% per year. Now that does start to cover what we need, and we can see now we have some investment returns that really covers a lot of what we need for our benefits. So we have this benefit growth rate, our investment return of 8% per year. We have a growing asset base. We're just fine. Let's actually start bringing that down, and now we start to see what the dynamics look like. There will be kind of a break even investment return, you know, for a given contribution rate, for a given benefit growth rate. You see there's this inflection point where the assets grow and then turn around. I can reduce it to 6%, and you can see that inflection point moving to the left. Do 5%. Now it's coming down. 4%, 3%, 2%. And now you can see it's running out at 2040. And I'm only running this out to 2040. If I do 1%, then it's 2039, and then we've already seen 0%. I can change the contribution growth rate. That obviously will help things, and I can boost that up. Let's just say there's no investment return, and I can keep boosting up the contribution growth rate to cover what I need. Obviously, if the contribution growth rate is high enough, that's going to cover things. So California PERF is a good fund to play around with because they have actually been making full contributions as required by actuaries, though they're underfunded. And thereby hangs the tail. Their investment return performance has been average in terms of compared to all the other funds, which is hardly surprising. It is the largest fund in the whole database. So it's hard for essentially the market maker to outperform the market. It's going to be the market average, as it were. So it's hardly surprising they will be about average. So I'm going to now try to do a handful of other plans that do not behave well in that they have been deliberately underfunding their plans, or there's something strange about them, period, that you may want to look at. So for every single plan, I start them out with all zeros in terms of the assumption set, you know, just kind of as a neutral starting point. Chicago Municipal is one of the most distressed plans. It's deeply underfunded and has been threatening to run out of assets for quite some time. One thing I want to point out to you is that the last historical item that we have for it is in fiscal year 2020, not 2021. So their 10-year and 5-year average is much lower than the Calpers example, but that's because it's ending in 2020. If it was 2021, I would be expecting a higher average. It's not because they have poorer performance. It's just the specific fiscal year they stopped at. Okay, that's fine though. You have to start with where we started from. Okay, so just with the zeros, we have the fund running out in 2032. Now notice their benefit growth rate is even lower than Calpers, but we have it, running out. So let me put their benefit growth rate at 3%. Running out in 2029. Yee, that's bad. Look at their contribution growth rate. It has been huge, and you can see that ramp up starting around, 2016, 2017. And the question is, how sustainable? I'm going to do 8% because 17% is terrible, there's just no way they can maintain such a growth rate. You're going from, and you look at these contributions. Remember, this is a million, so this 1,000 here is 1 billion. So they're going from something that is, so that's 288 million. In 2019, we're looking at 568 million. In 2020, we're looking at 656 million. And then we're getting up to over a billion in 2026. Are they actually going to be able to make these payments? And that's the question here. And then you look at what's going on with the assets, you see this dip. This is an inflection point of a different kind. We were seeing an inflection point before, it was going up and then down. Now this is going down and then up. That's showing a certain kind of vulnerability of where it could keep going down. That you're trying to escape, and this is because of growing benefits. Imagine if they boosted cost of living increases to the benefits, where the benefit growth rate would be higher than 3%, then that's a problem. And say the contribution growth rate, well, let's say, and I said you could put negatives in here. Maybe it was negative 1%. I'm, you know, joking around here. So that's not great. Or the benefit growth rate is 6%. Obviously, it would run out of money faster. Okay, so let's put this to say, okay, 5% is sustainable. We'll say the benefit growth rate is 4%. Investment return, we'll say we'll have 7%. Okay, that pushes out where we run out of assets farther. And then we see this pay as you go. We have these, relatively small amounts. And by the time we're getting out here, the amount we're putting in contributions are almost matching the benefit amounts anyway. So we're almost already at a pay as you go kind of situation, that this contribution growth rate is just a little bit above the benefit growth rate. So in some of these cases, we're almost already converging to a pay as you go situation. So what you're trying to look at is what is the dynamics, the cash flow dynamics, and you're trying to think when the assets run out, that doesn't mean people don't get benefits. The question is, can the municipality or the state actually support the benefits that are going to be running out the door at that moment in time? If the benefits are growing way too fast for the contributions or the tax monies that are getting collected at that moment in time, that's the problem. And this is why you pre-fund pensions, so that there is a big pot of money that can pay for those benefits. If you can't support those benefits, that's the problem. And that's why you have a tool like this. And this is a very simple model. So I thought I would do a comparison of a couple different teachers funds. So here is the New York State Teachers. And again, just starting out at all zeros. This ends fiscal year 2021. So you can see again the big investment return for 2021. Contribution growth rate, you'll see there's a negative 3.8%. For the 5-year average and a 1.5%. For New York State teachers, the contribution amounts go up and down depending on experience. So the contribution growth rate, let's just keep that at 0. The benefit growth rate, let's just do 3% since that's kind of where it is, and you can see it running out. Investment return, since it ends in 2021, that's not very fair, so let's do 7%, see what happens. It kind of grows. So that's New York State teachers. Let's look at New York City teachers. I knew that the difference between New York State teachers and New York City teachers is New York State teachers overseen by the state, which requires full contributions, is in a better position than New York City teachers plan, which is not well funded. So we have a benefit growth rate that's about 4%. Again, it's through fiscal year 2021. I'll just say 7%. And contribution growth rate goes up and down. I'll just say 3%. Maybe that's sustainable. It's not looking good for New York City teachers. A lot of city teachers' funds tend not to be doing very well. Chicago teachers is through 2020, just as with Chicago Municipal. And we have it going down, not so bad as Chicago Municipal. Our benefit growth rate, we'll have it, we'll split the difference about, we'll say 3.5%. And again, I'll say 7% for the investment return. Contribution growth rate has been, you can see there was a step up from 2013 to 2014, but since then, I think the 5-year average of 3.6% might be more indicative of what they're doing. So maybe we could say 4%. Okay, so we can see, this is a bit stressed, and it may be in balance. It may be kind of difficult to persist. And the last one I'm going to demonstrate, New Jersey teachers. So the benefit growth rate, I'm just going to put in 3% for the benefit growth rate. Yeah, that's not looking great. This goes through fiscal year 2021. And let's say our investment return is 7%, like I've been doing with other ones. We can kind of see this inflection point. Now, look at that contribution growth rate. And this goes through 2021. We've got this big ramp up. My question is, how sustainable is that? Can they really continue to ramp it up at almost 20% per year? That is not sustainable. I'm just going to say 4%. And maybe they can have this glide path that would work. So the whole point of this kind of tool, see where the strains are, look at what's sustainable, and you can try out a whole bunch of different plans. I'm not doing a ranking table right now. I'll do that in the future do all these different base assumptions of 0, 0, 0, 0. I can try different investment returns. I can see where these inflection points are or break even points. What investment return do they need? I can look at what the 5-year and 10-year averages are. But I do need to be careful about, because of the weirdness of the pandemic, I do need to be careful about where these things land fiscal year 2020 versus 2021. And I might even want to do some stress tests because we don't have the fiscal year 2022 numbers in this database currently. But we do know a lot of them are going to be showing a drop in the market value of the assets as a result of market drops during this year. And that will have effects. And one of the things I do want to investigate, as we saw with an increase in benefits for fiscal year 2021, I do want to investigate that to see if it's across the board in many plans. Were there a lot of retirements? Maybe that's what we're seeing with regards to a lot of places are saying that they're seeing increased difficulty with getting teachers in the classroom. And maybe that's because there's a lot of retirements. And it's not just teachers, it's also, of course, police and firefighters and other public employees. So again, thank you for your attention. And if you're not subscribed to my Substack, so that's marypatcampbell.substack.com, and I'll put a link in the video notes, as well as I'll try to put a link to the blog post I'm putting this video on. The Substack is free. Yes, of course, Substack is going to try to upsell you because that's how they make money. What you get if you pay for a subscription to Substack, for me, is the ability to leave comments on the Substack posts, and I in return will pay attention to what you write. So that's what you get if you pay for a subscription for me. Anyway, happy Labor Day. Enjoy, and you can download the tool on the post that I will link to in the video notes. There will be a copy of this. I will also put a link to where you can download this from my Dropbox. So there's 2 different ways you can get this tool, which is in Excel, and it will work on old versions of Excel and the current software as a service Excel. So enjoy.